so much, Sandra.
Thank
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Corbitt-Dominguez. I am the Director of External Affairs for Fulton County. I just wanted to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you for your leadership in this unprecedented year that we've all had. My office handles legislative affairs and communications for Fulton County, and we certainly have worked very, very, very closely with the elections department. And we do have a few items in the legislative package that our Board of Commissioners adopted that are relevant to elections and that we can talk about a little bit later. First, I'd like to let Chairman Pitts say a few words, if you all don't mind. He has been very involved, as well as our county manager. As you all probably know, 10% of Georgia voters live in Fulton County. It is an all-hands-on-deck approach. It's something that we take very seriously. So many people across our county government have been very, very involved in the elections operation. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chairman Pitts.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me go back to June, and based upon the challenges that we all faced throughout the state as a result of the elections in June, we made some changes in Fulton County. We took the challenges that we faced at that time very seriously. The first thing that I did as chair of the Board of Commissioners was to set up a task force of private citizens to look at the June elections, do a deep dive into what happened and suggest changes that could be made. And on that committee it was a committee of some 20 people. Two state legislators were on that committee. The recommendations from that committee were presented to our Board of Registration and Elections, and pretty much to the letter they were adopted. So we've made significant progress since the challenges of the June election. Specifically, what happened and what changes have we made in order to prepare for what I always referred to, going back to June, as getting ready for the big dance, which was the election, the November 3rd election. First of all, we increased the number of polling places in Fulton County by 91, so that we ended up with 255 polling locations for the November 3rd election. We also increased the number of early voting locations. We also bought 2 mobile units so that our voters would have easy access throughout the county no matter where they lived. We also, in working with our private sector, increased the number of poll workers. We had a pool of some 6,000 individuals who came forward wanting to help us, and we ended up having 3,000 poll workers ready and willing and able to assist us on November 3rd. The other thing that happened, and I had no idea, to be very honest with you, it was, I believe, I forget the exact date, but it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. My phone rang. It was my friend, longtime friend, Steve Coonan from the Atlanta Hawks, called and said, I got an idea. And we talked for about 1 minute. And I said, Steve, let me call you back. I called him back in about 2 minutes. And 5 minutes later, we had a deal. That deal was for Fulton County to partner with the Atlanta Hawks to open up State Farm Arena as an early voting location for us. And I can tell you, I had no idea the impact that would have and had, not only locally, statewide, nationally, and even internationally. And what I mean by that is, as a result of our partnership with the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena, NBA teams in other cities saw what we were doing, decided to copy what we did here in Fulton County, and it spread, and it's still spreading. It has gone beyond professional basketball to baseball and to even football. In fact, this afternoon, we will be announcing at 1 o'clock for the January 5th runoff, Fulton County, the Atlanta Hawks, and now the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United will be partnering with us. So we will now have not only the State Farm Arena, but Mercedes-Benz Stadium as an early voting location for the voters in Fulton County. I think that we have done an outstanding job. Budget-wise, we've increased our spending for this election cycle from $17 million to in excess of $35 million, and it's still growing. We've spared no expense. I'm aware of the criticism that has been leveled at Fulton County. We're the largest county in the state of Georgia, but I cannot speak to what the other 158 counties have done, are doing. I cannot. But I can tell you that beyond a shadow of a doubt, there has been no instance of any unusual activity within Fulton County. I have been personally involved in it. Has there been a situation from time to time where there's an issue with technology? Yes. Has there been a situation from time to time where there may be human error? But as far as an orchestrated effort to manipulate the votes in Fulton County, that's not the case. And what I have challenged anyone who has made those allegations to come forward, bring that information to me, and I will take it seriously, and we will get to the bottom of it. My focus right now, and the county's focus, the Board of Commissioners' focus, is to prepare for the January 5th runoff, the 2 U.S. Senate seats plus a Public Service Commission seat, and we want to make sure that our process is open, fair, and transparent. So that is my commitment to you, and I think that I'd like to ask the manager to come up if there's anything that I missed that I should not have said, did not say as an overview. But we're prepared to work with you. We'll follow the directives, instructions of the Secretary of State and anybody else. We just want to get it right. And I think, by the way, I would give ourselves, Fulton County, an A+ for the work that we did with respect to the November 3rd election. And this just came in. I think this is instructive and helpful. This is from the Metro Atlanta Chamber. On behalf of the Metro Atlanta Chamber, we congratulate and thank you for an organized, efficient, and transparent election. You and your staff have displayed exceptional calm during a time when emotions have run uncommonly high. Your regular updates kept the public informed, and your trust in the process remained steadfast. Our business community places tremendous value on the integrity of the electoral process, the cornerstone of democracy. For that reason, we are grateful for leaders like you who dedicated much time and energy to protecting this institution. As this election cycle approaches conclusion, we wish you continued success and restful holidays spent with loved ones. Please do not hesitate to reach out if we or our team may be of any assistance in any way. This is on behalf of the Metro Atlanta Chamber. So that simply speaks to the work that we've done with respect to the business community. But I have tons and tons of letters and emails from private citizens who say that their experience this last election was the best effort ever. And my pledge to you is to ensure that that continues for the January 5th runoff. Thank you. Mr. Manager.
I don't have anything to add, Mr. Chairman.
So, Chairman, if there are any questions we can take, as you said earlier, we will do our best to answer them. And we can, if there's something that we cannot answer, then we will gladly work with our elections office and get those answers for any of the committee members who are here.
Okay, thank you very much. I do appreciate you folks being here, and I've kind of alluded to this. You've been in the hallway or somewhere for quite some time now, and our intent was to be very efficient with everyone's time, and you guys have been very generous with us. So with that, and keeping in mind that, you know, this is not the election staff. These folks have been very involved, but they are not the elections officials. So let's try to keep our questions. You know, I don't want to pose questions that we know that they can't answer. And Maybe you can, maybe this forum will have a good feel about it, and we may be able to get the elections director in here at a later time if
Yes,
we
sir.
agree that that's a good thing to do going forward.
And if I don't, sir, I don't want to interrupt, but I did want to apologize on his behalf. We, as you all know, there was a recount. Last night was the deadline. We were able to meet the deadline, but we did have some reconciliation work that had to take place this morning. It took longer than expected, so I want to apologize. He certainly intended to be here, and I don't want that to be seen as a mark of disrespect by anyone. We felt like he needed to be there and handle that, so.
Trust me, I understand. Ms. Abbey has been working, like I said, for 4 weeks trying to coordinate, and different things keep happening. So it's been hard to get people here.
Yes, sir.
So with that, since the buttons don't work, is there anybody that doesn't want to ask a question? I see the pro tem indicates he has a question on microphone 14. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Pitts, for being here, and everyone for being here today and giving us your time. And I know you're very busy. I'll try to be brief. Give us a rundown on the water main break and what transpired there. People are seeing ghosts in the shadows, and
Yes,
we need you to expound on that, if you don't mind.
I'm not sure. That thing is taking a life of its own. There was a leak the floor above where we were counting ballots at State Farm Arena. According to Steve Coonan, CEO of the Atlanta Hawks, that occurred at 6:07 a.m. I forget the exact date. By 8:07 a.m., it was.
That was the day of the election?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was repaired within 2 hours. No ballots were damaged. No equipment was damaged. End of story. So how this has gotten to be what it is, I have no idea.
Were there people in there working at that time when the leak was discovered?
I was not there, but presumably there were people there because we started at probably 7 o'clock, I believe. I'm sure that some people were there.
So it happened at 6:07 and was repaired by
8:07.
8:07. So there were people there working at 6:07 when it was interrupted. Were they in the room? Were they asked to leave, and was the room secured? Tell us how that was handled.
Now, I was not there, so I cannot answer that question.
Okay. Okay.
And I will say this, sir, because the question of chain of custody has been raised. So I have had an opportunity to talk with the staff about that. I was not personally there. But my understanding is just in a room like this, if there was a leak over here, that does not mean that all of you would necessarily leave. And that is my understanding, is that there, the workers who were responsible for those ballots never left the room. They were in the room the entire time. They had to stop working for a period of about 2 hours, and that was the reason it was brought up in the first place, is there was a slight delay of a couple of hours where they couldn't access the entire room. But they did not leave, and they were, the ballots remained in the custody of the sworn workers.
Thank you for bringing some clarity to it.
Yes, sir.
And I'll just add that Mr. Coonan will testify to that effect, that it was 6:07. The reason I'm so specific about that is because he's told me on more than one occasion, from 6:07 to 8:07.
I may need to know the name of the plumber. I have some leaks from time to time. It's hard to get them fixed in 2 hours. Senator Robertson, on number 2.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate y'all coming down. I must tell you, I would rather ask these questions to Mr. Barron, but I do understand the importance of today. I heard a lot of positives about the increased number of polling places by 91 since the summer, moving into November, and the increase in personnel to work within those places. Yes. So, and I heard the number 3,000 and other things. So, who was responsible for the training of those individuals, and was that training conducted and completed, and if so, by that person that was responsible for making sure they had it?
Yes, sir. So we do have, within the county, we have permanent staff who did handle the training of those workers. in compliance. Of course, we receive training from the Secretary of State's office, and our permanent staff then conduct the training of our poll workers. We also, some of those staff were technicians and received training, as I understand it, from Dominion directly, and again, under the supervision of the Secretary of State's office. All of the workers were trained. We had a combination. Anyone who was responsible for handling equipment received in-person training. We also had staff who you would call line managers. So they would be outside the place to remind people to have their ID, to manage the line, just the kind of customer greeting like you might have at Walmart or somewhere else to give people basic information. Those line managers in some cases received virtual training, but they were not personnel touching equipment.
Now,
I'm sorry.
you brought up the Secretary of State's office provided the training. What they did is they provided the training to some of your permanent staff, the same way they do back in Columbus. And then it's the responsibility of the permanent staff to transition that training down to the individuals. But the Secretary of
That's
State's
correct.
office did not actually do any of the training, did they?
Correct. They trained, as you just said, the permanent staff. So it was a train-the-trainer model.
Right.
So they would, the permanent staff received training through the Secretary of State, and they in turn trained those temporary poll workers.
Thank you. And how many drop boxes do y'all have in Fulton County?
We have 38.
38. And all of those are under video surveillance?
Yes, sir.
And have y'all had any requests for any of the video from any of those drop boxes that you're aware of through Georgia's Open Records Act or any other process?
That is a question I do not know the answer to. I'm not sure, Mr. Manager, if you knew, but we will certainly check on that.
Thank you.
Let me add one other thing about personnel and technicians in particular. Going back to the early election, there was not a technician at every polling precinct. That should have been the responsibility of the manufacturer, as is customary, I understand, and the Secretary of State. That did not happen. However, November 3rd, at the 255 locations, we had, on our dime, a technician at every location that we paid for.
Well, and Mr. Commissioner, the county is responsible for the election, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think the investment was wise for the county.
Yes.
As opposed to, and it's actually, I believe, on the dime that it should have been on.
Yes.
And I do appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator. That's what I was afraid of. Senator Gooch, you recognize.
I didn't want to let you down. Commissioner, thank you for being here, and Richard, thank you. Dick Anderson, I've known you for quite some time. We appreciate what you do at the local level. I used to be a local government official as well. Can you, and I'm going to ask this question, not to be derogatory in any way, but just from a distance, living in North Georgia, every year we have elections, we watch our televisions or we watch the Secretary of State's results come in. It seems like every year there's a problem, either a delay or some kind of a technical issue or something in Fulton County. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just what I hear and what I remember. Is there something that you need from us at the state level or from the Secretary of State to prevent those delays and those problems in the future? Or can you tell me why there seems to be a continuous problem year after year?
I'll take a first stab at that, and I might defer to the county manager and our chairman. So I do think that some of that is we are a very large county. We have more polling places than other counties. Fulton County is 70 miles from north to south. It does take time to close down the polls, get the results physically to the places where they can be uploaded. So some of that is geography and volume. I also, Chairman Pitts, I was born and raised in Cobb County. Chairman is a proud native of Jones County. We don't hear a lot about what's happening in Jones County on WSB. We don't hear about, out of our 158 sister counties, Fulton County is certainly in the spotlight, and we recognize that. So I think some of it is reality and some of it is perception. And Chairman, I don't know if you want to.
Could I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
Since the signature verifications is the responsibility of the local governments,
Yes, sir.
how can you ensure us, as voters and citizens of Georgia, that all of the signatures are authentic and not being forged?
If you don't mind, I'm gonna take this off so I can
Absolutely.
breathe a little easier. So I would say, sir, that there's a state prescribed process, that we have workers who follow that process. There is, the first step in verification is to look at the driver's license signature for that voter, if it is available in the DDS system, and that is the first step. If that signature is not available, then the workers go back to the original voter registration file and follow that process. And if they're not able to make a match from that, then that application or ballot is denied, and then the voter is notified and given an opportunity to cure that process. So I think that it is our intent to follow the law, to follow the process that is provided by the Secretary of State, and to our knowledge, that is what is happening.
Can you describe the training process of those employees? They were trained to do that? How
I'm sorry, I
extensive is the
don't
training?
think that I could speak in great detail about that. But again, as I shared with your colleague, that we receive training from the Secretary of State. Our permanent staff receive that training. We do have additional workers during a large election such as this where the volume is so much greater. And we, they received a train-the-trainer process. So I couldn't speak in greater detail than that, but I'd be certainly glad to arrange for someone else who could.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions? Senator Jordan, number 6, you are recognized.
Thank you, and thank y'all for being here. I really appreciate it. Really, one of the main things that I wanted to highlight is the fact that there were significant issues during the June primary. I think that everybody knows about that because of the publicity that followed that. And so I just want to say thank you for working with the Fulton County delegation. Thank you for really doing a deep dive in terms of the task force and trying to really figure out what were the issues and how could you fix it before November. And I think the fact that really, with respect to Fulton County, how it has gone, I mean, the November election, I don't think could not have gone better in terms of the way it was managed, and so I appreciate that. I really, really do. In terms of what Senator Gooch said with respect to any kind of delay, Fulton County has approximately 835,000 registered voters, right? And so this time, it seemed like the results got out, I mean, as early as you could possibly expect them to get out in terms of the volume. Would you say that the fact that Fulton County or the various counties were allowed to at least just begin the processing of the absentee ballots kind of helped that process? Because previously you couldn't even start processing those ballots until Election Day, which of course then delays the ability to get the results out, especially if you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people in a county. And so was that helpful this time, and did that impact Fulton County's ability to actually get the election results out probably
Yes.
earlier than anyone expected?
Thank you, Senator Jordan, and again, thank you for all you do in partnership with Fulton County. Yes, absolutely. We received about over 130,000 absentee ballots in this election, which is 10 times more than what we had in the 2016 presidential election. And we know that Fulton County received more absentee ballots than many counties across the state have in population. So it certainly is a very it's a tremendous factor for us. That was, absentee voting is the most worker consumptive form of voting. You have to touch the application, you have to touch the ballot, you have to do the signature verification as we just described, you have to then scan and process each of those paper ballots. It is much more work intensive than other forms of voting. So the more opportunity we have in the front end to handle that, the more successful we can be, absolutely.
Okay, so I think all the committee members know if you want to be recognized, you got to kind of get my attention. I will try to do that. And we do have a cutoff in about 25 minutes, but I'm going to, because he waved at me so big, I'm going to go to Senator Dolezal, and I think Senator Harbin, did you indicate? And if there's others, just let me know. We will we'll try to get to you, recognized, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. We really do appreciate it. I think the committee is grateful for your attendance and waiting on us as we spoke with the Secretary of Staff. I just had one question, and I asked this of the Secretary of Staff, and they were not clear on it. It's my understanding that the Republican members of the Fulton County Board of Election would not vote to certify the Fulton County election. So really two questions around that. I asked the Secretary of Staff if they knew why, and they did not know why. It's my understanding that the reason why is that you all did not use electronic signature tools that were at your disposal that maybe had been used in the past. So I'm curious if y'all could shine any light on why they may have not voted for that certification. And also I'm curious, are you aware of any other time, any other previous election where members of either party did not vote to certify your election?
Thank you. So I can confirm that they did not vote to certify. That is correct. I do not recall the reasons that they stated. I was not monitoring that specific meeting at the time of that vote, so I do not know what reasons they stated, but I'd be glad if the meeting was videotaped, and I would be glad to send a link for the committee to review and could look into that. And I also don't recall specifically whether or not that ever occurred. It's possible, of course. It's a 5-member board, and there could be any number of reasons. So, but I couldn't speak to whether that has occurred in the past.
Thank you.
Okay, recognize the Vice Chairman Harbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm very interested. You said the NFL, the NBA, and the United were all partners. What does a partner do, and how does a partner participate in that process, if you would?
Chairman, would you like to speak to that?
What I mean by that is after the announcement of our partnership with the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena became public, NBA teams in other cities said, well, if the Atlanta Hawks can do this in Fulton County with their arenas, why can't we do it here? Because there was so much interest nationally in the election. So that's what I meant by that. So they partnered with us by allowing us to use that facility. The Charlotte Hornets, as an example, they did the same thing with their arena. The Detroit Pistons, then I switched, I forget exactly which baseball teams and which football teams did like. But in addition to that, and the professional athletes, and I say this, and I mean no disrespect to them, but many of them probably couldn't spell politics until this year, but they actually took the time to register and to vote and to get out in their communities and talk about the importance of voting. So what we started here has been a movement between the public sector and the private sector, government and our sports teams in particular. That's what I meant by that partnership.
And they also contributed staff.
That's right. In fact,
Excuse me.
staff, the Atlanta Hawks, they had, when Steve Coonan called us, said we have about 300 staff people here that we're paying. So it won't cost Fulton County any money. We will pay our staff people. All you have to do is train them, get the equipment here and train them, and they did just that.
Did you have any players active as far as participating volunteering?
We did, including Coach Pierce.
Okay. The other one is I was very interested in is a mobile unit. How does a mobile unit function? How is it used? I mean, is it every day it's going somewhere differently? Is it going to nursing homes? Is it going to places where large groups of people are? How is that mobile process done?
We had a schedule that was published. You want to?
Thank you. The mobile unit is treated as a precinct that goes. Let me just back up and say before we had the mobile units, Fulton County has several colleges and universities within the county. So during our early voting period, we would go to Georgia Tech for a couple of days, Georgia State for a couple of days, specifically the public universities, because as you all know, early voting has to occur on either an election day site or a government-owned facility. So we had the opportunity to do that. So we had a model already where we had early voting locations that were not open the entire 3-week period. So the mobile units kind of take that a step further. And so for any location that, again, was either a publicly owned facility or an election day site, we were able to take the mobile unit out. We publicized the list. We actually have 25 different locations throughout Fulton County, north to south. One of the things we do is we have 6 geographic commission districts, and we make sure that we divide early voting opportunities equitably among those commission districts. So, for example, the first day of early voting, it will be at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. It's going to visit Atlanta History Center, which happens to be one of our election day sites. And they will go for a couple of days, the same hours as whatever early voting is open that day. The other advantage is if we had let's say a plumbing emergency or some facility issue at a location, we could reprogram that mobile unit to go there and provide relief on election day. So we could, the machines, the equipment is there, and we're able to have voters check in. It's Wi-Fi enabled, so we're able to offer voting and expand the number of locations. As I mentioned, Fulton County is very large and populous, and so it helps us be able to reach voters, again, all over Fulton County.
Who owns those units? Just curious.
We do. Let me give you 2 specific examples about the 2 units. The power went out at 2 of our precincts, one at Chastain Park, the other in Union City. Perfect example for deploying those 2 mobile units.
Okay. Okie doke. Thank you very much.
And yes, sir, they are owned by the county.
Senator Harper on number 4.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Really appreciate it, and thank you for your patience while we were discussing these same with the Secretary of State's office. Senator Jordan referred to the early period, the Secretary of State's office and the elections, State Elections Board with the
Yes,
rule
sir.
where counties were given extra time before the election to start processing ballots. And if she asked this question, I apologize. Did you or did Fulton County, did y'all utilize that emergency rule? Did you begin processing ballots early or?
We did. I don't know that we used the full 2-week period. We had ordered some equipment throughout the process. We augmented the equipment that we were provided by the Secretary of State's office. So I don't know that we used the full 2-week period, but we certainly used part of it and were able to again, a very high volume of absentee ballots, 130,000 more than we've ever had before. So that time was very much needed to begin that process. Even just sorting the ballots and those kinds of things is very work intensive. So I don't know that we, again, took full advantage of it given the opportunity, but we certainly were able to use that time and to the benefit of the elections process.
So, and you may not know the answer, you probably, and that's fine if you don't.
Sure.
You don't know what percentage of those ballots you may have processed before or
I
after.
don't, but I will certainly, I think we have that, and I will certainly look into it and try to get an answer for you.
And just kind of a follow-up on that, I know
Sure.
that you process those through the scanner. Do you know, is there a higher speed system that we might could use to help help speed that process up a little bit. I think, because I believe that was a lot of the issue that Fulton
Right.
County dealt with that week was trying to process
Yes.
those ballots.
I actually spent a whole night at State Farm Arena with the workers there, and I saw firsthand, it is very time intensive. My understanding is that that vote by mail states, so like many western states, use a ultra high volume or a very high speed scanner. We used a higher speed scanner than what you would use in the precinct, but it was still not, I guess, the highest speed scanner that is produced, and that could certainly be an advantage in a situation like that where you're scanning hundreds of thousands of ballots. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
I'll see if I can get more information for you.
All right. I think most everybody else around the committee asked some of the other questions I was going to ask, so I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Senator Ramon, are you on? I see 2 sevens down there. Are y'all sharing a microphone? Well, let's see. His may be. They're both number 7, so you don't have to share a mic. They're both on.
No problem. Can you hear me?
Yes or no?
My ballot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's more like a comment, something, we are, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to have the opportunity to meet us over here. And this is, as we all know, this is unusual time and unusual year and unusual election that we had. We heard a lot about the signature match today, but I may be the only person had a different issues. I'm talking about this unusual time. What happened is the district I represent, people looks like a lot different than in this room, except probably me. I'm the probably only senator that got a call that somebody voting in person and with the ID didn't look exactly the same the ID was made. Because of the COVID, grown had a beard and a hair, everything else, and the person was challenged. You say, well, you know, that's not you. So that's happening too. So I just want you, to committee member, to know what we're gonna figure out. Had a harassment that, had a call, had to interfere, and the person was able to vote eventually. But the thing is, this kind of discrimination happened too. Even here, you have an ID and a registered voter as a citizen, nothing wrong with it, and you voted in the primary, had no problem, and then you go to general election and say, well, that don't look like you. What do you do then? We're gonna have a face recognition a machine or something to make sure you don't have a discrimination. And that's what I felt, and I had several folks in my district. They come from all different part of the world. I represent the people come from 100 different countries, speak 100 different languages. Sometimes some of these folks don't even speak good English. So we have a lot of other problem in the state of Georgia, not necessarily on the signature problem. I just want to put that out for your consideration. I want you to think about it.
We will see if we can get an answer. I think the appropriate channel for that question may be to the Secretary of State's office, and we'll see if we can get an answer for the committee on that. Are there other questions? Okay, Senator Robertson, number 2, you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. And really quick, something that you mentioned when Senator Harper was asking his questions is you pointed out a high-speed scanner that possibly might be available to expedite the process, while at the same time stating that your employees did not take full advantage of the time offered by the Secretary of State's office to do this. And I think that maybe looking into the process, because as a manager of large number of people, we need to make sure, especially something as important as an election, whether it's a city, county commission election, or any other election, that all of those involved are taking full advantage of the equipment, training, rules, regulations that are laid out before them. And I hear constantly, not just from Fulton, but from other counties, well, we're a whole lot bigger than this, and we're a lot different, and we have more ways to travel. You also have a lot more resources.
Yes, sir.
something this important, threat assessments and planning and everything is so extremely important. So I have a problem of embracing excuses that are self-inflicted, that are brought up because of self-inflicted problems. And what Senator Gooch was talking about earlier is, I don't watch WSB where I'm at. I rarely read the newspaper here out of this city. But always is Fulton County brought up when there comes some kind of issue. And I think the important thing is for us to dive down and address the issue. And, in public safety and everywhere else, the resources you have are greater because of the size of your community.
Yes, sir.
And so I get a little concerned with that, but I would hope before you went out and invested more of your money on high-speed scanners that, first of all, we get a good idea of what you can accomplish when you take full advantage of the regulations and rules offered to the communities by the Secretary of State's office.
Senator Robertson, I think that's a very fair point. I think Fulton County is blessed with resources. We are the largest county, and one thing that we have done, I want to reassure you, is convene a team. And part of the reason I'm able to answer some of these questions today, although my job is mostly PR and legislative affairs, is because we have had a very large multidisciplinary team across the county, kind of a bear hug approach of wrapping ourselves around this as first the pandemic and secondly elections have been the two issues that we have faced this year, and have my boss, who is a wonderful manager and leader, our chairman, everyone from the chairman down to the staff who are wiping and making sure the facilities are safe for us, have had a full bore approach to this. And now that the election is over, although it doesn't feel like it's over quite yet, I believe have already begun the after action analysis to help us do better. This is important to us. It's important to Georgia. It's one of the services that counties are responsible for that I think all of us hold sacred. And I think it's something that your point is well taken. And I want to assure you that all of us are here to help make sure that happens. So thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions in the room. I have one question, I guess, that I was worried about being asked, but as I sat here and I think about it, I want to pose the question, and if you don't have the information to answer it, then just say that.
Sure.
There's been a lot in the media about some of the elections officials or election board, I'm not sure what, that left while there was still some counting process going on. And the only reason I ask this question is that I believe with all my heart there's a lot of misinformation out that we're all struggling with, and we chase these little rabbits and they turn out to not be a rabbit at all. But if that is something you have knowledge of for sure one way or the other and could speak to that, I think this might be a forum to help clarify
Yes, sir.
some of the rumors.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity because I was with the elections director the night of the election when this came up. We originally, we were processing absentee ballots at State Farm Arena. We had a number of staff there who had been there since early that morning when the water break that we talked about earlier occurred. One of the managers had apparently directed some of the staff to leave about 10:30 that night. I was with the elections director when he told them, no, you need to ensure that staff stay and continue working. We still have a lot more work to do. Some of the employees did leave at 10:30, and at that time, my understanding is that at the time they left or before they left, some of the observers also left. They may have had conversation with some of the workers there and told them they were leaving at 10:30. I wasn't personally there for that, so I can't speak to it. There were people, however, there was a Secretary of State monitor who stayed, and once there was clarification that these workers were going to continue, additional monitors stayed. So I believe it was a communication issue. I always say that every problem at some level is a communication problem, and I believe that is what occurred there. There was no intentional misleading of anyone. There was nothing untoward that occurred, but some of the workers stayed at that time. Some workers stayed, some left. Some of the observers, as I understand it, had left. But there was a Secretary of State monitor there the entire time. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions from committee members. I do want to thank you for being
Thank you,
here
sir.
and filling in for Director Barron. And as I said,